Welcome to The Explainer. So today we are unraveling a genuinely eerie mystery that's been making headlines all around the globe. I mean, imagine taking a normal walk along the beach and just finding an alien-looking monster from the abyss washed up on the sand. It's happening more and more, and we really need to talk about why.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Picture this. A Japanese fisherman pulls in his net and finds a 6-meter-long, snake-like creature with pale, rubbery skin. It's a deep-sea oarfish. Now, according to centuries-old Japanese legends, seeing one of these at the surface is a pretty dark omen of an impending earthquake or disaster. But lately, it's not just an isolated myth. Fishermen are catching them by the dozens. And it's not just the oarfish. Down in the freezing waters of Antarctica, a giant phantom jellyfish with these crazy ribbon-like tentacles over 10 meters long was spotted at incredibly shallow depths. Off the coast of Spain, a terrifying black sea devil anglerfish suddenly appeared near the surface. These are creatures that have lived hidden away in the pitch-black depths for thousands of years. So, what's going on? Why are these bizarre deep-sea creatures suddenly appearing at the surface?
Well, that brings us to Section 1, the Deep Sea Mystery, the unexplored 95%. To figure out why they're leaving their home, we first have to understand just how vast and alien that environment truly is.
Think about this. 71% of our planet is covered in water, right? And yet, humanity has only explored and mapped a tiny 5% sliver of our oceans. That means the remaining 95% is just a massive, unexplored mystery. To put that into perspective, we literally have better, more detailed maps of the surface of Mars than we do of our own ocean floor. I mean, 12 astronauts have spent over 300 hours walking on the moon, but only 3 human beings have ever visited the absolute deepest part of the ocean, the Challenger Deep, and they only stay there for a few hours.
All right, moving on to Section 2, Zones of the Deep, Descending into Darkness. Let's take a quick visual journey down through the layers of the ocean to see exactly where these fascinating creatures normally hide out.
It's wild how rapidly our familiar world just disappears as we descend. Up at the top, we have the sunlight zone. This is where you find your dolphins, turtles, colorful coral reefs, the usual suspects. But drop down past 200 meters, and we enter the twilight zone. Water absorbs light colors differently here, starting with red. So creatures have evolved these incredible adaptations. The strawberry squid, for instance, is bright red, which actually acts as the perfect invisibility cloak in waters where red light doesn't even exist. Drop below 1,000 meters, and boom, we hit the midnight zone, pitch black. Here, animals actually create their own light through chemical reactions called bioluminescence. Think of the anglerfish using a glowing lure on its head to trap prey. We even have the vampire squid down here, using its cape-like webbing to catch falling marine debris. Further down still is the abyssal zone, home to the graceful, ear-flapping Dumbo Octopus. These layers are distinct, they're massive, and they're completely separated by intense shifts in light and pressure.
But here is where the story gets deeply fascinating. Section 3, Earth's largest daily migration, the hidden highway. You see, these layers aren't quite as isolated as they seem. There's this massive biological mechanism that connects them every single day.
Back during World War II, Navy sonar operators were totally baffled. They kept detecting what looked like a false seafloor that inexplicably rose toward the surface at night and then sank back down during the day. What they had accidentally discovered was the diel vertical migration. This is a massive, synchronized daily movement of billions of marine creatures traveling from the deep sea to the surface at night and back down during the day. We are talking about an underwater highway of biomass that weighs 25 times more than the entire human population combined. It's literally the largest migration on Earth, and it happens every single day, completely hidden from our eyes.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why they undertake such an exhausting journey. It basically comes down to a simple rule of survival: eat without being eaten. During the daytime, these small deep-sea creatures hide hundreds of meters down in the pitch-black depths. They're hiding from visual predators, sharks, whales, and dolphins that hunt by sight in the sunlit waters above. But at night, under the cover of darkness, they migrate upwards to the surface to feast on nutrient-rich phytoplankton. Before the sun rises, they vanish right back into the abyss. It's a perfectly balanced, ancient rhythmic cycle of life.
But unfortunately, that delicate rhythm is being shattered. Let's move to Section 4, Climate Change's Deadly Disruption, the Fight for Oxygen, to see how a rapidly shifting climate is turning this daily cycle into a permanent, fatal migration. 90%. That is the amount of excess heat generated by global warming that gets absorbed directly into our oceans.
The ocean has essentially been acting as our planet's massive heat shield, but that shield is beginning to warp. Ocean temperatures that were stable for hundreds of thousands of years are now steadily, undeniably climbing.
So the crucial point here is how this heat physically changes the water through a process called ocean stratification. Here's how it works. The sun and rising atmospheric temperatures heat the surface water of the ocean. Warm water is lighter and less dense than cold water, so it just sits right on top. Meanwhile, the dark depths remain freezing cold. Because the temperature gap between that top layer and the bottom layer is becoming so extreme, these waters simply stop mixing. And if the surface water doesn't mix with the deep water stops receiving fresh oxygen. It effectively creates a suffocating trap for life down in the abyss.
Let's walk through this devastating domino effect step by step, because this is absolutely central to our mystery. First, surface waters absorb global heat and warm up rapidly. Second, this creates that physical barrier we just talked about. The warm surface water and the cold deep water completely stop mixing. Third, without that mixing, deep ocean oxygen levels critically deplete. This right here is the trigger. These deep-sea creatures have evolved over millennia in environments with highly stable oxygen levels. When they start suffocating, their ancient daily vertical migration just breaks down. They are forced to migrate permanently to the surface, not just for food at night, but desperately seeking enough oxygen to survive. And finally, the tragic result. These creatures are totally unadapted to living permanently in sunlit surface waters. Because they can't retreat to the dark depths during the day, they're easily hunted and eaten by surface predators. This deadly disruption to their migration patterns is exactly why we're seeing sea devils and phantom jellyfish suddenly washing ashore. Their deep-sea sanctuary is quite literally running out of air.
Now you might be wondering, okay, but why does this matter to us up here on land? Well, look no further than phytoplankton. Phytoplankton are basically the ocean's trees. They absorb massive amounts of carbon dioxide from our atmosphere. When those deep-sea creatures migrate up to eat the phytoplankton and then dive back down, they actually carry that carbon deep into the ocean abyss, safely storing it away. As climate change disrupts this migration, the ocean's overall ability to absorb our carbon emissions decreases, which in turn accelerates global warming even further. It is a very dangerous self-reinforcing loop.
Which brings us to another major immediate issue. Section 5. The deep-sea mining threat. The new resource frontier. While climate change is this massive, long-term threat suffocating the deep ocean, there's a direct human impact rapidly approaching as well.
We are actually witnessing the dawn of a huge conflict right now over deep-sea mining. Deep on the ocean floor, right near these boiling hydrothermal vents, there are rich deposits of gold, silver, and other really lucrative minerals. On one side of the debate, there's a strong economic push from various corporations and governments. They want to deploy massive extraction machines to mine these untouched seabeds. On the other side, there's a fierce ecological push. Environmental groups like Greenpeace, dozens of NGOs, and currently 32 nations are actively petitioning against it. They argue that these machines will irreparably destroy incredibly fragile ecosystems. I mean, take the scaly-foot snail, for example. It's this tiny deep-sea creature that literally grows armor plating made of iron on its legs, and it has a heart that takes up 4% of its body, proportionately the largest heart in the whole animal kingdom. These totally unique, highly localized creatures face instant extinction if their hydrothermal vent homes are mined.
The United Nations International Seabed Authority is the body that actually holds the power to grant or deny these deep-sea mining permits. And right now, they are under immense pressure from both sides of the aisle. It really brings to mind what Mahatma Gandhi famously said: "The world has enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed." The UN is truly at a crossroads here. Proponents of mining argue it's absolutely necessary to meet modern resource demands for our new technologies, while environmental groups argue we're risking an entire untouched global ecosystem. Over 3 million people have already signed petitions supporting the ecological stance to halt this activity, yet the economic drive remains exceptionally powerful.
So it leaves us with a really profound question. Will humanity protect the deep ocean, or will industry reshape it? Between warming waters permanently disrupting ancient migrations and the looming shadow of deep-sea mining, the hidden 95% of our planet is surfacing in ways we really can't ignore anymore. The Leviathan is at our shores, but not as a monster coming to attack us. It's coming as a refugee from a rapidly changing home. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive in today's Explainer, and keep your curiosity surfing.